You know us creators, we call an emergency meeting like this early, always trying to sell you on something, but just because among us there are some imposters doesn't mean everything you hear is a lie or distraction. Like this Gamer Sup's watermelon ice flavour, it's delicious. You just take a little bit, yeet it into some water like a sauce out of an airlock, shake it up and down like you're emptying out the leaves, and then you'll find your wires connected for maximum energy flow. So to catch your breath again, just be sure to use the code THORIN, Thorin, at gamersups.gg for 10% off your order. Victory! Now, in the EULCS/LEC, there is a long history of new players winning in their first split or year. You had Reckless in Season 4, you had Febiven and Hooney in Season 5, you had Perks in Season 6. But that long history, covering a number of years, doesn't mean it's always going to happen. And in fact, just because of that, I think this is part of why there has always been this search for the next great player when they're a rookie or a first-year player. Because you know they could still win if they're that good. If they're a sure thing, it's worth it. But that's the point. In the past, this approach was reserved for sure things. Now you see teams doing it with rookies, basically not because they're a lock that they're going to make it, but just because the player's good. He hasn't yet been tried in LEC, so who knows how he's going to do. Meanwhile, the player you could buy instead, the player you could sign instead, well, he's not the absolute best at his role, and so he might be good, but not the best. And so what you think of players from this offseason? You had Crown Shot, Nemesis, Leader didn't get his chance. Like, these are players where you could sign these players. They could be pretty good. Like, Leader hasn't had his full chance yet. Sure, he's more in the rookie camp. Nemesis has played 2 full years and had splits where he was a pretty good player. Crown Shot's played 2 years now. Like, these guys, actually, if anything, Crown Shot and Nemesis, in theory, could blossom even more in their 3rd year now. After Crown Shot on the bad teams, Nemesis on the good teams. Almost said Nemesis, Freudian slip there. So in this scenario, I personally think the main reason why they do this isn't just that they're gambling for the next talent. It's that they're simultaneously doing a cynical move where they can't afford the absolute best player. So they think instead of the development player, a rookie has a lottery ticket, and maybe they're going to get the next Perks. Maybe they're going to get the next Caps. Maybe they're going to get the next Febiven. That's what they think. But beyond how that fucks the aforementioned mid-table talent, who certainly are good enough to play in the LEC and could still be a year, they could blossom in this next year, the bigger issue, in my opinion, is this. What these GMs and other players are missing is a key distinction, which is that there is a huge difference between being good at your role or laning, team fighting, and understanding how to win the game. How? So the guy who's just comes in as a rookie, he might have strong mechanical skills. He might have the matchup understandings of his role. He might even be really good in solo queue. It's probably how he got picked up, right? That or in the ERLs. But the player who knows how to win doesn't just know how to lane, team fight, pilot champions. Presumably, he's going to know some macro concepts, what to do around the map. He's going to have good comms because he's played long enough to know what people need to know on his team. He's going to have teamwork. He can work specifically with people. A jungler can work with lanes. A guy who's a support can roam mid. The guy who's a mid laner knows when to use the pressure and the kills he has and go and roam and get a kill or help a top laner out that's in a bad matchup. They might know how to do lane swaps and more advanced concepts when they're possible. Think of some of the classic examples of this. You have Soaz, who became not only, he started out as an amazing teleport player, could play any matchup, but one of the things that he really made his name off, Season 6, Season 7 and on, is just being this incredible player with understanding of map movements. Like in Season 7, famously his dog champ era, this is the guy who could just win a game single-handedly like he did at Worlds. Even when he was on those bad Misfits and the terrible Immortals teams, he would be the one sole win condition at times when he was on those champs that let him do that. He would just win a 3, 4, 5 games by himself over those 2 years, even on terrible teams that looked like they had no chance of doing anything most of the time. You obviously had Perks, who I think in his early days learned some of this from Mithy, some of the understanding that guy was able to pass on, great mind for the game. But I saw it even more so when he's an AD carry, because this is a position that, well, not even his traditional position, but he's figuring out how to do flanks. He's figuring out when to call to go in on a fight, where traditionally maybe the other guy just waits and he sees what the rest of his team's going to call because he's the AD carry just trying to do damage. I think Wonder from G2 is a great example. He can, in his lane, get behind, be played a bad champion, be first time in a champion. He can still be useful later in the game as long as the game's not over. Or if he gets his champions and then he gets his pressure and he gets his kills in his CS, he can just outright carry the whole game. He can sideline like a motherfucker. Probably one of the best. He just doesn't have to do it on his team that much. I actually don't think on that point that you even have to be that super duper in all those respects. You can have certain ways that you know how to win the game. Nukeduck has been a superlative sideliner for many years. And if you could play it, you couldn't for most of last year, then you see what he can do. He's going to give you a chance in games that otherwise you might not be able to win. He's going to always understand when to fight, when to back, who he can take the fight with, and how to get that maximum CS. Put it this way, if we go back to Season 7, now that I know what I know, I want Caps, but in Season 7, I think you win more games with Nukeduck than you will with Caps, because Caps had very bad understanding of what to do at that point in time and how to win the game. He just had really amazing skills, and by the way, a terrible hair trigger at that point in time. There was no guarantee back then that Caps became who he is now. Yes, the limit testing angle was going to get him there if he had the capability, but it wasn't guaranteed, and sometimes that just means a player who wins. Now, obviously, some of this knowing how to win the game is that they're not new players. They've got years of experience, both in terms of time they've played in the league, but also in terms of winning. They've also been on winning teams for many years with different teammates, sometimes with very similar teammates who have this understanding, or very smart teammates who can pass knowledge on to them. They've been coached by some of the best. They've been to Worlds and played the best players and teams, etc. So my issue is this. I don't want to see any potential top org. So if you're not G2 and Fnatic, I don't want to see the 3, 4, 5 orgs being the ones who just gamble on rookies, especially not loads of them. The hierarchy of signings for me goes like this. Top of the pyramid, the best option is to just buy the best players at their roles if you can. If you can't do that, you can try and shrewdly recoup a great player who probably has something left in the tank. Think of like Randy Moss in 2007 when he went to the Patriots. So that would be like if you get a Soaz and you put him with the right talents. That would be like if a Mithy's still around and you get him and he helps set up your whole team. That would be like, I know he's still great now, but in a couple of years from now, it would be what someone should probably do with Jankos. When G2's done with him, someone else should take one more year of crack at him because he could really revitalize himself even if G2 decide he's not the absolute best. Third on the hierarchy wouldn't even be the rookies still. It's last year's rookies that themselves everyone would have jumped on. But now what you can do is if a lower team tried them, example like Selfmade, and they look like they're ready to step up and be on a top team and be the best, they already showed some potential, that's when you get them. 4th of 4 are the rookies with some potential but not surefire locks. If they're not a surefire lock, they shouldn't be at the top of the list. You're just gambling when you do that. Because you're going to think this year, well, there's some great examples of this year and last year what's been done, right? How about Mad Lions? They beat G2 in the spring in the playoffs. They led the LEC for most of the summer. They made Worlds. Should be one of the best possible examples of what you can do with really good rookies, right? Even Humanoid, by the way, was only a second-year player. Like, for me, he somewhat counts as a rookie in the colloquial sense, even if LEC doesn't. So let me just ask you these questions. How many titles did they win? 0. How many finals did they make? They beat G2 in the playoffs. 0. How did they do at Worlds? They failed the play-ins. They, in theory, were one of the best teams in the players. They failed it completely. All right, how about this? Let's go to Rogue. Remember, Rogue was the team that was having success as well. Now, yes, most of them, they're not LEC-defined rookies, but for me, they're rookies in terms of experience. Again, remember, on my hierarchy, if I'm a top org, I wouldn't be signing some of these players. I'd maybe go for like one and then put quality players that are just mid-table players around the rest of them. So how about this? They finished the regular split top of the league, made Worlds, Larson looking like an MVP. And how did they do in playoffs? They were beaten by Fnatic easily, and then they lost to, I think it was G2, right? Larson shit the bed in the first series. Guy who could have been the MVP of the league. And then how did they do at Worlds? They not only failed to get out of groups, which to be fair, they weren't a favourite to, but worse than that, they finished last place below a team from PCS. Now everyone was bragging about how LEC is this monster region, maybe the best region in the world. PCS finished ahead of those guys. And let's be real, it's not like Rogue were a pure rookie team in the sense that, if you use the colloquial sense, Mad Lions were. They had Vander, and if it wasn't for Vander, I don't think they made the playoff. Well, they would have made, no, that's stupid. They wouldn't have made Worlds, that's it. When they were doing that run to actually make it into Worlds, I thought he was a massive part of why they were able to do so. The only reason that, in my opinion, rookies made sense for these orgs is because Mad Lions was Splice. Rogue is fucking Rogue. Like, these aren't the teams or orgs that were going to be able to secure the absolute top talents. They don't even have any elite 3-4 year talents generally. So they weren't going to be able to buy them, probably. Doesn't seem like they're going to spend that much. And they certainly wouldn't be able to secure them. They wouldn't want to go and play them. You want to go and play in Fnatic, G2, maybe in NA for Megabox. So They needed to gamble. I understand why those orgs did it. The point is, those orgs overtook certain other regions, certain other teams who could have been in position to do much better. Vitality, maybe Misfits, maybe the guys over in OG, Origin. Even then, by the way, these teams that had success with the rookies probably had too many. And so there were too many variables that could all go wrong at the wrong time. Imagine those teams with Alfari or Kabashard as their top laner. One less person to worry about, one person with potentially international quality, sometimes international experience in terms of Kabashard. Or how about this? What if at their bot lane, instead of Kazi, you'd had Upset or Kobe when you'd got to Worlds? Now, it wouldn't have been as good in LEC, but at Worlds, you might be in the playoffs, you might be in the groups. Who knows what's possible at that point in time? Probably they all needed one more veteran player. Like, I think even if you're going to go for rookies, get 1 to 2 and manage them. Don't go for 3 or 4. You're just begging for things to go to shit. Even Caps wasn't the best in year 1. Same for Abadagi, who only showed his form at the end of year 2. This is one of the reasons why I think people judging Leader so harshly is nuts. He hasn't even played a whole split. He's got his own unique skills, and when he's on his champions, he does look very good. He hasn't had a real chance yet, and people have already written him off and want all the other mid laners that are available in Europe, whether they've done fucking anything or nothing. Not only do you need a minimum, in my opinion, of one player who knows how to win the game to help with shot calling and conception and figuring out what happened after the game. It's probably ideal if you have 2. I think G2 is so insane because depending on which period of time we're talking in the last 2 years, they've had 2 to 3 players that seem to understand how to win, what to do no matter where they're out in their lane, what the matchup is, and therefore can help each other and formulate these amazing plans on the fly. I think Fnatic's issues this year stem from the fact they had a bunch of good players, but they didn't seem to have pretty much almost any player that fit this criteria. I think Hillesang has it in a way, like certainly yes he isn't sometimes, but also you look sometimes when they're behind or he split pushes or how he wants to take like an aggressive fight where he doesn't want to get bled out and so he goes for the... I think he maybe has it in some ways, but most of the others didn't. And more importantly, this is the key thing, the others weren't listening to him and didn't want to do what he wanted to do anyway. They were backing off. I think TSM's rarely ever had these players, and the few times they did, maybe Mithy, Yellow Star, Smoothie, they didn't seem like they listened to them, and therefore it didn't matter if that guy had good ideas, no one was going to follow up on it. So it's big difference between being good individually at the game and knowing how to win a team game in an LEC type format. This video was kindly supported by Pronogo, Mohammed, Alabdul, Razzaq, Dean Tanglis, James Pederson, VatriSam, ErikHillestad, Andreas Kroknes, Hades, Zoomba Gaming, JDubs, Tobias Bernasconi, and Alexander Rao. Special thanks as always goes out to Jerky's Minion. Would you like to suggest a topic or a guest for one of my upcoming episodes? Maybe you want to ask more of those questions in that video AMA I do each month. Do you want teasers? Find out who the next guests are for my shows. Well, maybe you even want to take part in one of those crazy donated discussions where we go all over the place. If any of these perks appeal to you or you want to support the channel, put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrolluminati today at the Patreon link in the description box below.